Okay.
There we go,
There
Tom.
we go. So
Oh dear, how are
we're
you?
here. We're here. And I get to say a little bit about who I am, I think. Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay. So I'm Tom. It's written in the corner, Tom Spoors. So I've known Cynthia a while, since she was the boss at one point.
I still am.
So yeah, how about me? Well, I've been in teaching and education since the beginning of time, it feels like to me. I
Yeah.
started about 35, 40 years ago now. I was a school teacher to start with, maths and science in the UK, secondary education. Then I joined the military for a while. It
Yeah.
seemed like a big change, but not that much, because there's a in the military you get this idea of a civilian job, which is where
Right.
my education training came in, because basically military organizations are all about training and education,
Yeah.
and then your little military job, which is a different thing altogether. Um, and then we had the end of the Cold War, and then it was all right. Let's get rid of our teachers and so on. So I came back out, started my own
And
little
by this
training
time, you
company.
had already relocated, right?
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
Yes,
you're
constantly.
all over
Yeah.
Europe with the
Yeah.
military. I was in down near Bristol in England, then up in Scotland, then down near Cambridge, then across in Germany, and so on. So yeah, fascinating stuff. So came out of the military 1998. Set up my own little business doing Microsoft Office training and things like that, and maths for kids that weren't doing well. And then we had the Millennium Bug. So of course, I wasn't old enough to be into the Millennium Bug software. So
Which never came.
my entire business disappeared overnight, and I was all taken over by the even older guys who could write COBOL programming language, which is quite amusing. So after that, I joined a company as a training man. The people who make the little set-top boxes for television, Sky TV.
Right.
So I got to know what goes on inside there, wrote training courses for that, and generally worked my way up to a global director position, which was good fun until the company got bought by an even bigger company. And they say, we've already got someone doing that job. So
Bye.
bye, on your bike, here's some cash. But it was
See
all
you
very
when I
nice.
see you.
And of course, they managed to make that coincide with the financial crash, didn't they?
Yes.
So not much chance of actually getting a job there.
Yes.
My wife's Belgian, so we up sticks in 2010, came across to Belgium, which is where I am now.
Yes, and that's how we met actually
Yes,
after a
indeed.
while. But other than the boss,
Yes,
we've always been friends, and
yes,
it's
indeed. We've been
yeah,
on and off and making comments, with a small group of us who are there. So yeah, I mean, personally, I've got an interest in science. My extra studies, my master's studies, ended up being in communication of science to the public, and how do we communicate science? How do people receive knowledge? What do they do with knowledge,
yes.
and stuff like that? And of course, that all brings in the realm of what we call critical thinking, doesn't it?
Yes, I think we're a bunch
Which
of
I think
opinionated
any
thinkers.
reasonable person would say right now, there doesn't appear to be a lot of that going on at levels where it should, or at least not visible to us,
Well, but
where it
it
should.
started, so we'll go little by little getting
Yeah,
there. I think we are a bunch of us. I mean, a
a
bunch of
bunch of
us
us.
friends who are really opinionated thinkers,
Yes,
and it's really a pleasure always to exchange ideas and think about stuff, and
yeah.
then put that into practice. So
Mm.
let's go with the first one, is the maybe the critical thinking, because it's
Yeah.
fascinating. And after the lockdown, the first lockdown, and the first months of this craziness, because
Mm.
you are such a good geopolitical analyst.
that,
and,
that comes out of being in the military. You don't get much of a choice in the military about
no,
knowing your
I mean,
geopolitics, but
it's
yeah.
been like going to the
Yeah.
theater, seeing your exchanges with your brother and sister on Facebook. It's
Oh, good grief. Yes. Yes.
great
Yeah.
culture, but it really makes you think. Anyway, at one point we started exchanging with you and Julie, talking about what this meant and how we were being bombarded by the media, and we
Yeah.
didn't know what to think anymore, and we needed to take distance, and all that talk
Yeah.
actually led to you starting this blog,
Yeah.
and where you keep on posting things. I'm going
Yeah.
to write the
I
reference
haven't done
later
that too
on.
much recently, but yes, I was trying to add things to that and trying to show how it
Yeah.
was been, because really the whole thing about, and the way Trump is a classic person who doesn't want to think, he's just moving himself on, and he's used the power of his position to say some outrageous things. And people have jumped on what he says, literally, and followed what he
But there's
says. And
also
I
a
think,
generation of instant
yeah,
everything
instant
and
everything.
mass media
Mhm.
that doesn't give you time for critical thinking,
No,
for be it politics or the information about the coronavirus or
yes,
whatever, that we haven't been trained to think critically. And
no,
we all thought this was a waste with the generation, the Z, that needs to be prepared to be critical. So
yes. Now you've got to sort out. I mean, what, it's always true that the media have got a bias one way or the other because they're
yeah.
owned by people who've got an opinion who want to
And
say
have
what they're doing. So
vested interest.
the Daily Mail or the Telegraph are bought by people who already agree with the opinions of that newspaper. The Mail or the Guardian Independent bought by people who agree with the central position that gets taken there. And for me, there was this whole thing about the hydroxychloroquine.
Yes.
Which it turns out when you get in behind the scenes, there was actually some legitimate reasons why it might have been at least tested out.
Yes.
In the end, the research showed that it wasn't effective enough
Right.
unless you got it into the person in the first 2 days of infection, which is not really possible because people don't really show the symptoms for more than that. So the problem was that you had Trump there shouting out about how this was going to save the world when it was never going to do that. And
And our
unfortunately,
point was, who do we believe?
who do
Because
you
we don't know
believe?
what to believe,
Yeah.
who to believe.
Well, we should be listening to the people who are paid to do that. But unfortunately, it was a politic of the Trump administration to put place men and women in positions of power where the people who could tell you what was going on, the people who could give you an opinion, whether it was the leader of the CDC or whatever, were being shuttered. Their opinions were being told, no, you can't publish that. They took over the websites and they made sure that content. So there was not only was there no critical thinking going on, there was a deliberate move amongst the entire government to stop the critical thinking happening, to allow people to make up their own mind.
And what is critical thinking then?
It is. And the thing is, you've got a whole lot of people there who have heard words in their own lives, that pick stuff up as they go through life, a little bit of knowledge here. The whole idea that a little bit of knowledge is dangerous is true because it's actually killed that couple that I mentioned where, hydroxychloroquine, isn't that the same stuff we use for the fish tank? Boom. Next thing you know, that the poor guy is in hospital and then he's dead because, he's got a similar sounding name. And they ask, why do we need to teach science? Why do we need to get people doing this kind of thing? Well,
Why do we need to educate? Anyway?
Why do we need to educate? There's this constant push.
Yeah.
And of course, any kind of democracy comes from people, we would hope, having a population that actually is critical of the government, which is a bit difficult when you've got a government that doesn't want you to know what they're doing and doesn't want you to think for yourself. Then they're not going to push for critical thinking. And still now in schools, there's such a big push for tons and tons of knowledge.
Yes. And not a lot of wisdom.
What can you do with it? I'll give you an example. My son, he's studying Dutch as an immersion thing, and his science, they got him learning the names of every little thing inside the cell in Dutch, and he's 12. He doesn't need to know all that. What he needs to know is, how does a body work in general?
Yeah.
But we're bombarding them with tons and tons of memorization stuff where they just don't get to think about what they're doing. And half the problem
how do you apply? So is the wisdom to apply the knowledge? And so what is critical thinking in your...
Well, critical thinking is the ability to take a look at the information that you've got and decide, well, is it going to be true? Is it likely to be true? And of course, you've got to be a bit of self-critical as well, because we've all got our opinions about what's right and what's wrong and what's true and what's not true. And it's the ability to look at a piece of information and don't just go straight along with what's written there, but stop and analyze what you see in front of you and think, is that likely to be true?
Yes.
Is there a way I can find out? What's the expert opinion? Are all expert opinions valid in this context? And that's what it is. It's a moment to stop and be aware that we are already primed to believe in a certain way, just because of our upbringing, just because of the schooling, just because of what we read, because perhaps of our religious background, our cultural background. Certain things are just true. And we need to be able to pierce through that. We need to be able to say, okay, am I being led a dance here? Are they saying things that are not true? Will I know that what they say is not true? Are they being convincing? Are they being rhetorical? Yeah. And there's all of that.
What I was saying, who are these people making these claims? Because
well, there are people making these claims in a world where, if you want to get on, then you really have to bring everyone with you, and you don't mind how you do that. As long as people come and buy your product, agree with you, then, critical thinking, we don't need any of that. Just, come on, trust your gut, Unfortunately, there aren't any brain cells in your gut. So sometimes you've actually got to stop and, okay, that, how can I break that down? Where can I go for information? Does it sound like that person's trying to push me in one direction or another? And it does require that we slow down. It does require that we understand and get familiar with the tricks that people play, the rhetorical tricks that people play. And perhaps you can even trace this difficulty right back to Roman times, Cicero or Aristotle, who spent their time showing how to make good speeches, how to persuade people. And the whole of our classical education is based on the idea that the aim of the game is to persuade people to believe what you're saying so you can get things done. Now, whether that thing is manipulate everyone in society or for themselves, that's where the critical thinking plays a role. It's the junction you've got. We've based our entire education system on, teaching people how to be smart, how to argue well, how to avoid answering the question. You just watch any politician now on television for 10 minutes and you could tick off a bingo card of, oh yes, he's used that technique. Oh, he's used that. Oh, look, he's used that technique as well. And they're all there. It's like a tick list of how to not answer the question while getting your own point of view across.
Yes, and it has become a lot of noise, has it not?
It is. It's huge.
It's horrible. I just turned off the television and I started this series of talks with friends where we take the time first to articulate an idea, then to exchange ideas. We took the time at that time to go read, your blog, your ideas, and to say, okay, does this ring true? Is this, do I feel this is what's happening or not? Yes. And does it correspond to the reality I'm seeing outside? Because you can tell me, I'm black, but I have a mirror.
Yes, indeed. And we've also got this strange tendency that's been happening in the media the last 10, 15 years to say, oh, we've got to treat everything as equal.
Yeah,
no, you don't. No, you don't. Some stuff is just wrong. If someone says it's raining outside.
Yes. Look outside.
No, it's not. It's as simple as that sometimes. Just go back to the evidence,
Well, Belgium is a little bit tricky for that because today it's been raining on and off.
So raining on and off, yes. Okay, yes. Is it raining precisely now? Define now, and so on. And it just gets, you can get yourself into verbal loops, obviously. And that's where they'll try and take you when you're arguing. But have you defined this? But. And there is that moment you just go, look, shut up. There's someone knocking at the door. No, there isn't. Yes, there is. And, you sometimes have to bring it right back down to basics. There's this whole thing that we do need a base from where to go. We do need some agreement about certain things in the world. Otherwise, we're never going to get a meeting of mind. If we don't agree that the alphabet is ABC,
Yeah.
and we don't agree that 1 + 1 is 2, then we just have to stop there until we get some kind of agreement. We all need a platform from which we can move up and then gradually move up until we can see the bigger picture. And it's all about breaking it down.
This common ground exists because we as human beings, we have the same hopes, we have the same wishes, I believe, and we have common values and core values that can be the basis or lay the foundation for these steps to come.
They could be the same wishes and things, but there's a whole group of people there who are out there for their own self-aggrandizement, who want to run the world in a particular way and know how to be persuasive. I mean, let's face it, the whole of the university degree of marketing is how to persuade people to do what you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
you give us your money.
Yes.
You take this off us. And
we've
built an entire
really
infrastructure in business.
Yeah.
And we give people degrees in this stuff in how to be less than economical with the truth.
And then the pandemic hit, and then our consumer behavior completely changed and got us by surprise. So
yes, but I mean, half the problem with the pandemic was like the media reaction and the government reaction to the media reaction, and then the media reaction to the government reaction to the media reaction, and then the people all saying, look, I don't want to wear a mask, or I don't believe in vaccines, or whatever it is. You know, I mean, there were arguments for and against vaccination at one point, perhaps.
Yeah.
The problem was it was all centered on Bill Gates and some massive conspiracy to put robots into your blood so they can control your thoughts. You know, he's not that imaginative, Bill Gates. He's smart, but he's not that imaginative. And it was just like, I don't mind. You could argue there was a commercial pressure from the vaccine companies, no doubt, and you can analyze it from that aspect. That's critical thinking.
Yes.
I mean, I am pro-vaccination. I'm a biochemist originally by my training. I take a look at the things and I go, yeah, on the whole, vaccination's been good. Whether or not we've run too quickly into that game this time, now that we've got the information about COVID, I don't know, you could go either way. But to argue that it's all bad because vaccines are bad is not critical thinking. You know, I mean, you can argue that we didn't need to perhaps do that this way round because of all the commercial pressure. And look, in the end, mainly we've now found out that people who were affected were of a certain age, of a certain body type with certain preconditions. But you didn't know that beforehand.
Blood type, even.
Blood types, and, you know, asthma and obesity and smoking and preconditions. And the problem is,
conditions and all that. Yeah.
We don't know that until we've been through the whole process at least once. And that's why you've got to wait.
The personal choice, is it not, whether you want to get vaccinated or not?
Well, yes. But again, if you want to be a member of society, sometimes your personal choice has to go by the way.
Yeah.
You know, if your personal choice is to do 150 on the motorway and knock people over, I'm sorry, that's not a personal choice that we're going to permit you.
Funny you should say this, because I had one group of students who are lawyers who were saying, so where does your personal freedom end?
Indeed.
And there's no reference for this.
No, it's all in the discussion. It's all in the agreement. Where it ends is the agreement about what is reasonable law or not. And then you've got a whole discussion about the rule of law, the principles of law, and and we're talking about law right down on its basic level. We're not talking about laws about giving money out for COVID and all these extra things. We're talking about what, you know, if a law is going to be useful, can it be shown to be fair?
Yeah.
Can people discover what that law is quickly enough without having to employ a lawyer, you know, so they know what they're doing?
Yes.
And is it going to be fairly applied to everybody all the time? Basic ideas of law are reasonably straightforward, but then lawyers and things get in the way, and then you get the arguments going on about minutiae. and we miss the whole point of what the law is there for. And
how I've missed your rich vocabulary, Tom.
But it's only in English. Don't ask me to speak like that in French.
True, that's not true. Your French is very polished as well. Okay, so let's talk about how did the beginning, so from a professional perspective, what happened? Because we had to adapt. We were talking before recording about we had to completely adapt. And you said,
yes.
The word adapt.
Yes, yes. Adapt, yeah. I think for some people, it was not a matter of adapting. It was a complete boom, a complete change.
Yes.
And the adaptation there was both technological, it was emotional, it was a whole load of things. For some people, we missed out the fact that some people don't have Wi-Fi at home.
Yes.
That they can't afford the internet. And if they can afford the internet, they haven't got a mobile phone, or they don't have a screen, or they don't know how to use it. And we get this whole thing, this digital fracture that's occurring. The digital divide, I think, where we've assumed now, because we're 10 years after Apple, the iPhone, that everyone is au fait with the technology, that people know how to get Zoom to work. I must confess, I got the basic settings in Zoom and some simple ideas, a couple of breakout rooms. But when you look into the menu, even me, I'm going, I don't know what that's for, and I'm not going to touch it. And then how do you get the right camera? Is the camera pointing in the right place? Do I need to put in a virtual background because I don't want people to see my bedroom where I'm working from?
Well, I'm putting a virtual background. It's because I like Mum's paintings accompanying me when I talk with friends.
There you go. Yeah. And of course, what that does is what people have just learned is that then you're trapped in a certain level of the visual field, because if you go backwards, your face becomes the picture and your hair disappears.
Yes. And it well, my hair is a mess.
I know good. Yeah, I know someone who's good colors.
I'm distracting you.
Yes. But no, I mean, I went out and I bought a reasonably expensive camera because I'm on there all the time. So I've got a good depth of field on mine, so I can move backwards and forwards. And I decided just to make this corner reasonably tidy and sort of office-like. In that sense,
even the physical adaptation, because I'm still recovering from the accident I had on the road. And let me show you. This is I need to move for you to see it. It's a gate which has which has support. The bottom, the top, it has, you can even massage
the cervical support, the lumbar support down by the back.
You have lumbar support. You can even plug it onto your computer to get your lower back massage. It has a little thing that you can pull out to stretch your legs.
Yes.
And so this was crucial for me because physically I needed that, and I've used some of the games that we used to have for teaching to bring the computer to a level, to eye level, so that my neck is supported.
It's not tilted up, not tilted down.
Because I couldn't do it. Yeah. So, and it was also rearranging your interior, like you said, getting I would say to terms and not even to know the technological aspect, but then we still have a human element missing.
Oh, indeed. I mean, because I'm working full time here, I've actually got now, I've just counted into my USB holder. Yeah. Right, I've actually got 11 cables going in. Because I've got a pad here for writing on. So you've got the little scribing pad here.
Right.
I've got a scanner that I need because students are sending me stuff and I'm marking it, sending it out. I've got the printer that's going on there. I've got the Ethernet cable going in. I've got down at the side there, the hard drive. I've got I've got the speakers plugged in, the microphone plugged in, and it's just massive.
So
and what I had to do was I needed a bigger desk.
Yeah.
So there was that whole adaptation there to the physical space I've got.
So
You're frozen out to me. Your picture's
yeah,
frozen
there
out to
we
me in
go.
this angelic look. What, for the angelic look or just for the freezing out?
Both. But I think that the
Yeah.
connection was unstable for a second in this book. Yeah, so we have become like
Right.
techno teachers, right? Techno teachers. I don't know.
Well, indeed. I mean, adapting myself. I mean, the desk that I had was an IKEA work desk, and it's just not wide enough back to front. When you've got your camera, a tripod, and your printer, and I went in trying to find a new one in IKEA, and in the end, I've actually bought a dining table
Well,
because
like
it's
mine.
long.
Yeah, for
And
it.
it's got an extra that bit on the end. So now I've actually got this huge space where I can just put things out and not have to worry. I don't have to put stuff on the floor. I've had to get control of my environment,
Yes, and that's a
and
good
sitting down in front of a camera, for 6 hours a day, it's just,
yes,
we're
or
just not
more.
designed to do that.
Yeah.
We're just not designed to do that.
And you were mentioning digital fracture, and I heard very
Yeah.
interesting survey results from the vice president of Microsoft Teams talking about digital exhaustion, because people are just exhausted. And
Yes.
we need to think of new corporate cultures, but I think also for the teaching world, be it private or institutionalized, we need to find, because there's a lot being said and it should be said about how students are coping with this, but teachers are digitally exhausted and are putting everything they have
Well,
into
yeah.
making this
There's
a valuable experience.
Yeah, there's a definite cognitive overload here.
Yeah.
Because normally when you've got a group of people in front of you, you got one sweep of your eyes and you can take the group in, you can see their position in space, you can see them smiling, sitting down, whatever it is that the students are doing. But on a screen, you're actually having to move your head around and move your eyes to,
Yeah.
and then you can't see the student because you've got a grey box with their name in, or worse, a grey box with a daft icon in. And you're going, well, who is that? And everybody knows, because everybody knows that Jimmy's icon is whatever, but as a teacher, you've got to get to learn all of that stuff. And then when you get a class of 40 or 50, I've now got myself a screen, which is like, it's huge, because otherwise I can't even see the faces.
Yeah.
And I can't display my PDF or my little digital whiteboard that I'm using. So you're having to manage all of that, or you move your mouse and it doesn't work, or your little digital pen has fallen off the table, and all these things, or when you've moved your pad, the USB cables come out and you didn't notice, or your microphone's rolled off and it's not listening properly. There's all of this to manage, along with the lighting, which you try and need to get control of as well.
And the time it takes for prep work.
So, yeah, it's an adaptation, and no one's taught people how to do that. And to be honest, most people aren't interested. Getting people into a classroom in school can be difficult enough.
Right.
Getting them then to have to manage all of that electronic stuff, all of the different ways of presenting the material, it's exhausting. It's not what the human brain evolved to do. We're evolved for watching small, green background mainly, and small objects moving around. And we've got this static thing in front of us, which has got an alien sort of light coming off. And it's just, for me, it's exhausting. It really is. You get to the end of the day and I'm finding I'm more tired sitting down talking to a screen than I would be in a classroom, where there's a bit of human animation going on, an occasional smile, a joke, a wink, all of these little things that you pay attention to as a teacher. Perhaps you don't notice you're paying attention, but you do.
Yeah, even physical movement.
Yeah.
Because we are the sort of teachers who walk around.
Yes.
And so
I am. I'm an inveterate mover arounder myself. Yes, it terrifies my pupils to death because they're actually going to be writing something down on the. Oh my God, he's coming! So yeah, I mean it's all of that, and none of the training leading up to that.
And
you
do you
know.
think the future of education is also hybrid?
Well, it has to be, doesn't it? Because that our world is going to be mediated online.
I think so.
Um, again, what worries me is that even I'm reasonably confident. I've got no idea what's happening in the background anymore. There was a time when I knew what was going on my computer, but now this thing updates automatically. Google sends me changes of terms of conditions. Emails arrive saying this has happened.
Yeah.
This is not working anymore. And did you know that this is not? I'm going, for God's sake, leave me alone.
And where your phone once was private, now it's WhatsApp. It's the easiest way as well to communicate. So it's I think it's changing. But the flip side of the coin for me is that any crisis or any deep change like this is also an opportunity for creativity and renewal.
Mm.
And also some teachers who were maybe stuck in their ways, they now have to rethink the way they present the content and not use same old, same old.
Well, what a lot of them, they've just made it into a PowerPoint presentation and gone flick, 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 flick. I am in trouble at my university because they say, where's your PowerPoint? And I'm going, I've never, ever used PowerPoint to teach in my entire life. I don't do PowerPoint. Oh, you've got to put it in PowerPoint. I'm going, no, I just don't do PowerPoint. And what a lot of them are doing, I get the impression, is they're doing a content grab.
Yes. And
they're taking your right. Oh, well, if you work for us, we're entitled to the content. No, I'm an independent. I'll upload it, but you be aware that every single one of these things is password protected.
And you don't
unless I'm using open source material.
Yes.
Then
it's your property.
We've had this debate with one university. Well, can you send us your exam in Word format? And I'm saying I've never used Word to set an exam because I teach maths, and you can't set a maths exam in Word. It's just not designed for that. So I use a professional typesetter.
Yeah.
And they're going, oh, well, we need it in Word. Well, I'm sorry, I can't do it in Word. It just doesn't work. It's this just isn't going to happen.
Is it not?
Can you send us a PDF so that we can convert it to Word? You can do what you like with the PDF, but it won't convert into the equations and the symbols.
Yeah.
There's a reason I'm doing it in this software. And there's this whole thing about, we don't understand. If it's not in Word or it's not in PowerPoint, and that's my issue with this whole thing, that where in a classroom I can use a whiteboard, I can create some posters. I did have some posters earlier on. Here we go. So just before we COVIDed, I actually downloaded some posters, and at my own expense. These are posters on critical thinking.
Let me just say
these aren't mine. These were created by another company.
Yeah.
And huge things. And my intention was to get these on the wall in the classroom.
Very Shakespearean.
Just as somewhere to point to. Say, look, let's think about the bystander effect. Let's think about the halo effect. Let's think about negativity bias. All these things which can impact the way people think. But now I'm sat down and I've got like a screen to work with. Yeah. Whereas in the past, I had control of my environment. I could open the classroom door, close the classroom door. I could open the windows, close the windows. I could turn the heat up. I could turn the heat down. I could choose to use chalk on a chalkboard. I could choose to use things on a whiteboard. I could throw paper planes to make my point about quadratic equations, whatever it was.
But
I can't do that anymore.
Let me say two things. First, for non-native speakers, please do not use the word COVIDed.
Oh, come on. Yeah. If jump can become jumped, then COVID can become COVID.
No, it's good because I teased Jules with her neologism, which was Wallonians.
Excellent. No, yes, okay.
Okay.
Before COVID arrived.
No, but I like COVID. Yeah. I'm just warning. Yes. But the other aspect is,
for those of you not listening in English.
the things we like. Words.
Yeah,
But the flip side is
yeah,
that you can become more creative because you cannot use those posters.
yeah,
And what I found for myself is that I didn't transfer a lesson on paper to the computer because it doesn't work.
mm,
So it took me months of preparation before I started teaching again to say,
mm,
okay, this is now the platform that we're going to have for at least 6 months and,
mm, yeah,
counting. And so how can I create content? What can I use that I couldn't use before
mm,
to, to use in this format? And I think it's been successful because my students keep on learning and they enjoy the lessons and they find it's like break during the, meeting after meeting or class after class. And it's a time to, okay, it's a simple question, how are you doing? But I do understand that when you have 50 people and have the faces, it's a tough
yes,
thing to do.
it is. It is. Um, and of course, I mean, I was doing that particular one at that university because somebody was off on maternity leave.
Ah,
So I didn't even know the students to start with.
right. So the
But I did manage to make an impression such that in the very last lesson that I taught before, they it was all quiet. It was all very, very strange. And there was no one there in the room going, where are all my students? And all of a sudden, they all arrived en masse. And every single one had their camera on for the first time ever. And they had a little plaque saying, thank you, Professor Spoors, for
oh,
pushing us
come on.
hard and making sure we're all in the room. And it was like, oh my God, where I need a blanket, I need to hide. No, because I just wasn't expecting that. And you've got no idea what's going on for them.
No,
And
it's been
you've
really
just got to
tough.
keep on pushing. You've got to keep on pushing, saying, come on, Judy, you haven't said anything for, half an hour.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't matter that you don't know. I don't know either. Now, let's go from there.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer. I don't know what sentence you're going to give me. Just have a go, because you'll never speak a language unless you actually open your mouth and try it. And,
Yeah, yeah.
because that was teaching English there to the university students there, the law students. And what they gave me back, of course, was even more important. That was that I hadn't studied law, but then I had 6 months of law in English with French students. And that was good fun, and I had this great big back and forth with them about, the principles of law and what the cases were. And they appreciated that I didn't actually just put the slide up and talk through the slide. Right. I said, okay, imagine now you've got your own cabinet.
But
and I've come to you. Here's the scenario. I'm going to pretend to be Mr. Jones, who's going to buy this property, and I want your advice, Maître Johnson, and get them to do it that way. So you need to adapt. You can't just say, okay, let's talk about this thing. Yeah. Let's get some more role play. Let's get them involved. Let's get them arguing with each other.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of confidence, though. That takes a lot of. And it takes a lot of energy.
I think it's
exhausting pushing against a white screen. It might not look like it's pushing, but pushing against this white screen all the time. Have they heard me? Did the microphone work? Have they lost their Wi-Fi? Has their dog run out the door and they've run after it?
Because
whatever. Or why on earth is that man now working in the background painting?
Because everything we knew to be true as teachers, it has changed. It has changed.
Indeed.
Okay, so but I think
it has changed.
Yeah. So I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the important thing is that in one sense it hasn't changed, and that is that have we managed to rewire their brains? Because that's the whole point of any lesson. Can you rewire their brains so they go out and they do something differently? If there's been no behavior change, if there's been no awareness that they can use a word like that, or they can do this, then education hasn't happened. It doesn't matter what we like to think. Maybe there's been some noise, and it's their ears have heard it, and it's like bounced off and gone straight back out again. Did it actually get hold of some neural pathways and go, come on, change? And that's, in the end, that's what it is, a rewiring of the brain. We still got that job to do.
Yes.
It's just how we're going to do that in the digital age. And then you've got education systems, which are just, how are you going to change one of those? Mm-hmm. People who've been teaching 45 years and are going to take their pension next year are not going to change. One can understand that on one level.
This is the challenge. I took part in a kind of a digital convention called Montreal Connects, and we were attendants from 50 different countries. And when that was being planned to attend personally, we're talking about this coming into the digital era. By the time it was online, the program had completely changed, because we were in the middle of the digital era, because you didn't have time to, not even to resist. You don't have a choice. You need to.
Indeed.
And so
what was fascinating, it was fascinating, wasn't it, that a lot of the stuff they were saying was actually not quite right. It turned out when we got there, it was like, oh crap, that's not going to work.
Well, they adapted. It was really interesting because it was about smart cities. It was about the health system being digitalized. Right. It was about education and of course the media and new trends and all that. So it was really very exhausting, but fascinating also.
Which brings right back to the critical thinking then, and the whole idea of where are we going with society and what's good for us, and what are the ethical concerns around, I don't know, AI, for example, and facial recognition on cameras, the societal impact of robots doing jobs that other people used to do. There's a whole lot of people like their manual jobs. They just go in, do their thing, sweat a little bit, make a bit of effort, and now they're being replaced by robots. And then we're saying, that's okay, we're going to give them jobs in the robotics industry. We're going to give them jobs in software. Are you joking, Johnson? Because, not everyone's adapted to working and writing software, or managing people in that sense. So
artificial intelligence is not just robots, it's all the algorithms they are using.
Well, that's the whole thing. And there's the argument whether we're actually talking about massive computing power or artificial intelligence, because at the point where we start talking artificial intelligence, there's this debate about whether we should use the word artificial intelligence. It's out there now, so it's hard to stop. And maybe we should use like machine intelligence, in the sense that artificial intelligence, well, what does that mean? Well, if it's intelligent, it's intelligent. Yeah. And it's the whole use of this strange adjective, artificial. The whole thing that we want to keep that intelligence separate from that intelligence up here, and pretend that it's artificial. Yeah.
As in non-human. Well, okay, so next time we'll talk about maybe artificial intelligence today and where the world was going before Corona, which wasn't a good place either. But since you mentioned robots,
yes.
Why don't you tell us about your robots?
How careless of me. It must have been when I wasn't looking.
So you organize is this for children or teenagers?
I did, yes. And, I put some money into little Lego block things.
Yeah.
Basically, kids love Lego. Yeah. And then you combine that with a little robot where you can give it instructions, and you can put sensors on it like infrared, ultra, infrasound and stuff like that, and it can detect touch, stuff like that. And you say, go on then, make your robot follow the path. Can it follow the black line? Can it go up a hill? And so on. And I did one of those just before the Corona, and of course I haven't been able to do another one since. Because you'd have to get kids in the room.
Will you?
I still got the bits in the garage. But I'm just wondering, in 2 years' time, is it still going to be valid? I don't know quite what to do with all of that. So whether I, go to a school and say, look, you can have the kit and we can work together to do some lessons. But that was good fun. I was particularly impressed by the fact that my daughter and one of the girls in the group actually didn't bother with robots with wheels, discovered that you could actually make cartoons on the little screen. Wow. And then created a 10-minute story by recording and making little sketches and using the program to bring each picture up while they were recording. And it's like, wow, that's not even in the book. But because they saw you could make pictures and
like father,
sound,
like daughter, I'll say, like father, like daughter.
It's just the creativity there. You give kids a basic thing and say, okay, I tried to make a little course where I taught them the stuff. I said, okay, we're going to teach you how to make the little program there and make the block slide and make it follow a black line and do this, or make it detect colors. But after that, it was chaos. I was out, I said, okay, I'm just going to have to manage the creativity here, because once they realized what the basic ideas were, they were off. There were fighting robots, there were sorting robots, there were robots that could walk upstairs. They were all over the place. And that was kids who were 9, 10, 11.
Yeah, and this is why, just in closing, I would say one of the points that really touched me that the vice president of Microsoft Teams talked about was Generation Z. And he said, this is a generation, these are the youngsters who are used to all this digital world. But since the pandemic started, we've hired, he said, more than 10,000. What they don't have is workplace experience. They don't have the culture of a company. So they are the ones suffering from depression the most because they know how the clicks work, but they don't have
what's missing is it's so complex, science and society, technology and society. And if you try and imagine any kind of technology and you miss out the socio-ethical, technological dimensions, then you've missed the whole point. It's not just about the thing, it's about the relationship of the people to the thing to the people, and the thing to the job you're going to make it do. Is that going to be a useful job or not? And clearly,
so it's not just about company culture, it's about the interconnectedness of all phenomena. And this is in my Buddhist perspective, but it's very applicable to the situation. So we need to, what you said, help our youth rewire their brains, but at the same time be there for heart-to-hearts.
Yes.
And give them support, because we are like mentors. We are more than just, teachers at this stage. So
indeed, and we're having to cope with our own insecurities about what's happening as well, because the ground is moving at such a pace that you think, well, will this be relevant next year? What's going on here? Why? Even at universities, when they're saying, look, you've got to do it this way, I said, no, that's not a good way to do it. You're choosing an easy way to solve that problem because it fits into the model of Microsoft Teams, must use Word, must use PowerPoint. That isn't necessarily the best way to do the job.
Exactly.
And you've got a whole load of people who are confused by that. How can you not use Word? Because I'm not teaching English. I'm not teaching people how to write essays. I'm teaching people how to think, how to apply their ideas, how to think mathematically, and how to reason their way through a problem, and statistics and so on. So I use websites. There are some marvelous apps out there for teaching maths, for visualizing ideas, where you're going, oh, blimey, even I'm going, whoa, I've got it myself for the first time ever, where you've been rather abstract, but you've understood the abstract idea, because you can when you don't know what, but then you see a picture of it and you're going, oh, that's what's happening as well. And and we have access to that now. We have software which allows us to visualize things and to present things in a different way, and to give information.
The same for languages, because I've been teaching Dutch, English, and Spanish. Using films, TV series, YouTube, short films, and using what's out there and people are using every day, but putting that into the context of language exchange and reality, and using, even published articles about vaccination or no vaccination.
Or vaccination, No, I mean, there is all of that, because you're also struggling against some people's idea that education is a rigid mechanism for putting information in. And I've got one set of parents who are saying, why aren't you teaching these verb tables? Well, because actually I've given them a book to read, and we're talking about the book.
The verbs are conjugated,
Yes.
Sometimes it's funny because they think that's not true teaching. And I think our approach, of course, is
Of course,
better.
I mean, you need a little bit. You need to say, look, here's how you make the past tense. There's the irregular past tense. But after that in English, it's like,
Tell
okay.
me a story.
Yeah,
Tell me a story.
because we don't have all these different verb endings. We conjugate very, very simply in English, and
Like you had like COVIDed.
COVIDed, yeah. I mean, why not? What's the other word for it? You know, let's just reduce the number of syllables to get the idea across.
Or different ways of saying the same, synonyms, antonyms, and the rest. Yeah, that's exactly how it should go.
And yeah. Yeah, I mean, really nice. I wouldn't want language to be simplified, because, you know, in culture there's a beauty to a language, there's a way of expressing it depending on what you want to do. You know, clearly when I'm teaching critical thinking, I'm saying, well, that sentence is too long, because someone could confuse that idea there. Say it simply.
Yes.
Use short words, be clear. Because as soon as you make a sentence 2 lines long, you're asking for a kicking.
And for many people, demystify as well, because it's no, you know, English is not my mother tongue, and that hasn't prevented me from making friends, creating a business, exchanging, teaching, and so this is what we need to go back, I think, to more solid values and creative ideas.
My kids can out-grammar me in 2 other languages. You know, I mean, I hear my wife, because she did learn her French the traditional way, and they're talking about the complement direct, and I'm going, I've got no idea what that is.
That's my job as a linguist.
And that's the other thing in English. I remember in my school, we spent our entire time reading.
Yeah.
We learned that a noun was a naming word, and that people's names were proper nouns. We know that verbs were action words and adjectives describing words, but that was about it, you know. And then we just learned the weird English spelling, because English spelling is a dog. shouldn't be allowed out on its own. Huh? So yeah, and that's what we focused on. The first time I did English grammar was when I was in the military, where I said, you can't write an order using that kind of language. We want it to be brief, accurate, because somebody might die if you get your instructions wrong.
Yes.
Oh, right. So I learned a whole new thing. The first time I came across grammar and spelling correctly was when I was in the military.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and you don't, people don't think like that. You know, they've got this idea of the military as being brainless goonies, but I didn't see very many of those in the military. There were some very smart cookies.
Very smart cookies.
Because if you're not smart, you're going to die.
and taught by smart cookies. Okay, listen, last question, please.
Yeah, then.
Would you publicly share the new skill you have acquired during lockdown?
That skill. Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've become my wife's hair colorer in person. She just arrives there and says, okay, we've got to get this done in 25 minutes. Yeah. And I'm there with the plastic gloves. And yeah, I've now got to perfect. Apparently what I'm going to do next time is get little bits of foil.
Yes, for the highlight.
To protect some of the mesh. I didn't get the highlighting right, but there you go. That's maybe why she didn't pay me the 85 euros, you know.
There you go.
Next time I'm coming with a contract, you know.
Thank you so much, Tom, because I know you are very busy as well, that you took the time to share with friends all over the world who will be watching this, and I hope it brings them some critical thinking ideas.
Yes, and don't be scared to be loud and opinionated sometimes, you know.
Yes, it's good to be big mouths.
Yeah, it is. So looking forward to when we can actually all start meeting, just being loud in person. That would be much more fun as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's changed. I mean, even now, just going out to do the shopping, it's just like, okay, you know, you've got to almost plan it to go out the door and think, okay, have I got my mask? A number of times I've got the end of the street and again,
you go,
mask, and you go back home. You know, you would have thought after a year I would do that, but no, you know. I've been on the planet too long to think about a mask all the time.
We'll try to survive long enough to have another chat and possibly one day meet in person again.
We will. All right, now you take care.
You too, Tom. Have a great weekend and give my best to your family.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye.